All right, I think we're ready to start. So welcome everyone to this presentation of new features in Aligned Elements version 2.6. This session is going to be recorded. So you can find this on our website and on our YouTube channel together with all the other new in videos that we've done before. I'm going to start out showing some of the smaller new features, and Anders will join me later on showing some of the really cool things that we've added to Aligned Elements. So thank you everybody for joining me here. This version of Aligned Elements is really a lot about customer input that we have received from all of you. And you will see that, I hope that some of you will recognize some of the features that we've implemented because they are definitely requested from our customers. So starting out here rapidly with the first one being about trace tables, and this is a long-standing request that we've had from a lot of people about being able to create trace table from snapshots. So you now find the possibility in the input mode selection to create your trace table from one of your many snapshots. And how does that work then? Well, as you know, a trace table input set defines what is placed in the first column of the trace table. So the first column in the trace table will be populated with items that are found in the snapshot. And then the rest of the trace table will be populated by the traces defined in the trace table, but from that particular point in time when the snapshot was made. So this feature is available in the Word add-in, in the web client, and in the Windows client as well. Then we have another feature about seeing indirect traces. So I'm sure that you are very well accustomed to looking in the trace to and trace from tabs in the detailed part of the document object form. So there you can see all the direct outgoing and incoming traces to the object that you're looking at. And now by hovering on this icon that is trailing to the text, you will be able to see the traces that trace from this particular item. So here I have a hazard analysis item, for example, and if I hover over this icon here, it will then show me all the traces that goes out from this particular item, meaning that this hazard is tracing to the probability of harm, and that then to harm and to a measure, and this to a requirement, and so on. So you will then see the entire trace tree going either out of a particular item, or if you choose to look at the trace from tab page, you will see the indirect incoming traces following the tree upwards, seeing everything that is traced to that particular item. So this is a web client only feature, but I hope it can come in handy to some of you. The next thing is all you are familiar with attachments and file objects, where we have these kind of file attributes where you can upload a file. And in this version of Aligned Elements, we've implemented a preview feature, a pop-up feature, meaning that if a file is of any known image format that is handled by the browser, you can hover with your mouse over the icon that is prepending the file name here to get the pop-up of that particular image without having to open it in a separate tab. So hover to preview an image if an image is associated with a file attribute, for example, in an attachment or in a file object. This is a web client only feature. The next one has to do with the file object itself. And for those of you who work with signatures, you know that you can create a signature of a file object if that file object contains a document, and then you can sign that document in a signature object. And what we have now enhanced the revision history of the file object with is to see which of your file revision has ended up in a completed signature. So you can see that there's two new columns then in your revision list in your file object. Containing then the first column, a link to the signature object itself. So you can click on that and navigate to the signature object, and also the completely signed document. And you can click on this link to immediately download the document to your browser. So now it's much easier to see what are the releases that have happened for a particular file over time. This feature is available in the web and the Windows client. We have now exchanged or added a new PDF converter. And we think this PDF converter is much better than the previous text control PDF converter that we used. The new PDF converter is called Gembox, and it's from now on our default PDF converter for converting files to PDFs, primarily when it comes to signing documents. And the only visible change that you will notice now is that when you sign something with an electronic signature for which you use digital certificates, you will notice that the signature when opening this is in Adobe, for example, no longer contain this this green check mark. It just looks like a regular piece of text. I assure you, it is still a valid digital signature. But don't be scared if you don't see this green check mark. It doesn't mean that something is wrong. It's just how it is displayed in Adobe Acrobat when using the Gembox PDF. Yeah, we have enhanced the signatures with a number of features. This is not only from this version of Aligned Elements, but also from the previous. I'm not sure if you're aware of them, so I'll just simply talk a little bit about them. So when it comes to signing, there's been a lot of improvements on who can sign and in which order, etc. So, for example, new features are that instead of assigning a user to sign a document, you can assign a user group. And then anybody from this user group can sign on that position. And once the signing has taken place, this is then resolved to the concrete user. So that means that if you don't know who is going to be available from a particular collective of people to sign a document, you can put all of them in a user group and then assign the user group instead of a particular user to a row in the assigned users attribute. And all the members of this will then get an email, of course, if you choose to send out an email. And the person that then finally signs off on the document will then have his name displayed in the signature object, and of course also in the PDF file itself. We have also included the enforcement of order of signatures. So previously it was if there was a number of people that should sign off on a particular document, we did not enforce the order. And now there's a possibility to enhance then the signatures with enforcing the order of signatures. So the first person needs to sign before the second, or people belonging to a particular or having a particular characteristic must sign before people of a particular other characteristic. You can also now decide whether a particular user has the possibility to sign on several rows. For very, very small companies, it's often the case that one particular person has several roles, and you can end up in a situation where one person then signs in the capacity of different roles. And now it's the possibility, you have the possibility to switch off this behavior to ensure that no user signs on more than one row in the signature. You can also now switch on the possibility to organize your signatures in chapters, should that be something that you would like to. And there is also now a possibility to add, as the signature closes, a small footer at the bottom of each page of a signed document in order to mark each page in the PDF that it has been signed by Aligned Elements. So all these things are then available through configuration. So it's not something that is available out of the box, but you should be aware of them. In order to enhance usability, I'm sure that you are encountered, at least in the web application, a lot of lists. And what we have added now is this search text box. And this is a so-called search as you type text box, which means that as you search here, or as you type here, the content of the list will be reduced to the items that contain the text that you're searching on. So it's a really nifty feature and really fast for searching for items in a list. For example, when you want to select traces that you're supposed to set or deselect. Only available in the web client. We have made a few enhancements when it comes to tags. One of them being to include tags in exported items. So if an item belongs to a number of tags, that information is included in the export when you export to XML. When you import such a file then that contains document objects in XML that also contains tag information. You can choose when you import what should happen with this tag information. So we have two new selections here in the import dialog. The first one being import tags, which means that if the importer finds that an object has tag information in the import file, it will automatically add the object to the corresponding tag in the target project where it is imported. The second box here is you have the possibility then, if such a tag does not exist in your project, that Aligned Elements automatically adds this tag to your project. And then, of course, automatically adds the corresponding objects to that particular tag. We've also included the possibility to generate an Excel report from the edit tag dialog, so you can get a document of all the objects that belong to a particular tag in a really convenient way. We've had some comments when it comes to the way that we perform reviews, and I think this is a really healthy one. As you know, in the web client, you can now, when you deliver feedback review, or review feedback, I mean, you can decide whether you want to add comments or whether you want to add issues to the items that you review. And sometimes our customers are unsure, should I add a comment or should I add an issue? And one of our customers then said, wouldn't it be great if we, when we perform the review feedback, that we just add comments? And then when everybody have delivered their feedback, we can go through all these comments, and then in the feedback overview, select which of these we want to promote to formal issues, and then we can solve those issues. And that was a great idea. So now in the review feedback overview, you have the possibility to promote comments to issues by clicking this button. And I think that is a great approach to do all the feedback from everyone in the form of comments. And then when you sit down and talk about all the comments together, you can then decide which of these that you want to promote to formal issues. So this is only available in the web client. If you have worked with test runs, you have realized that the list of test runs in the Test Run Explorer is listed in an ascending manner. We have reversed that now, so you will have the latest test run with the highest number appearing on the first of the list, because it's most likely that you're working with those. So we want you to have those easily available when you click on the Test Run Explorer. We have also worked a little bit on the performance here. So first we will load all the test runs, and then in a second step, in order to not to block you, we will then collect all the progress bars information that is needed. So if you open the test run and you see that the progress bar are still gray, it means that that data is still loading, but you can still navigate to the test run and you don't have to wait for the progress bars to load. One customer noted that when it comes to our risk summary in Word, it would be really nice if when there are no risks that belong to a particular category, a particular combination, for example, of probability and severity, that we explicitly write out 0 instead of nothing. So that is now per default, and per configuration, you can also now add the risk text of these categories should you want to these cells. On public demand, we've also added a progress bar in the web client Word add-in. So for really large, you've probably experienced this, for really large documents, it takes some time until the actions are completed, and it's not always easy to be able to assess how far are we in this process. Now you got this progress bar, so you can follow actively how the work is going. If you're new to assistance is something that we added to the web client a few versions ago. It means that you can, in a wizard type manner, perform actions in the Aligned Elements, like including or automatically import items, answer questions, and based on your answers, then perform particular actions. We've added on popular request a new assistant step, which means that if you select in an assistant to import items from a library, you can now even select which of these items you want to import and not just get the entire block that Aligned Elements suggests. So it will be then possible to fine-tune the import results you want from this particular assistant step. Now I am done with all these kind of smaller new features. They are all based on popular request from you guys. I'm sure that some of you who are looking right now is asking what happened to the features that I requested. I assure you they are still on our lists and we're still working on them. But I want to assure you with this presentation that we are actually listening to our customers and are adding features up on their request. In most cases, they are absolutely great. And I totally understand why they want these things. So I want to encourage you to keep asking for new features or new variants of working with Aligned Elements, because we really, really appreciate it. Now, Anders is going to show you some of the larger features that we've implemented. So take it away, Anders.
So a small thing here that we have in the web user management is that we have possibility of doing central management of switching on and off two-factor authentication if that's enabled for your system. So it's not something that each user has to switch on and off on their own. And also the same thing goes for if we have an external login provider, like when we connect to Azure AD, that we can also switch that on as a user manager. And that's also not something that an individual user has to take care of on their own. Just makes it a bit more easy to manage these features and see who has it in place and to force it on a user base, right? Another thing that's concerning the user management in the web is the possibility of having a bit more detailed web user roles. So we can now decide for individual users if they're allowed to create projects, manage projects, copy projects, remove, rename, and things like that. And same thing goes for templates, upload, download of templates, if that's going to be allowed from the web user interface or not. And also for downloading log files, it's possible to set that on a user level instead of just switching it on and off for the complete server as it was before. So they are just small handy features to help out with management of the system. Maybe a lot of you don't see these parts, but we also try to make it easier to maintain the management of the solution, of course. Now I'm going to dig into two major features that kind of look small, but there's quite a bit behind the scenes to happen. So what we've seen is in the web app, in the application, that you can of course create chapters, you can arrange your document objects, design items in the chapters, but as soon as you want to create reports of that and you want to describe things going on in a chapter, in a subchapter, you would have to open the Word document to do that portion and add text in between. And we kind of thought it would be nice if we could actually get that directly into the UI. So now we have something which we called chapter description, and it gives you the possibility directly from the UI, and this is also web-only function. For functional requirements. And you will see it by looking at this highlighted, this blue icon. It has a chapter description, and if you hover over it, you can see what the text is. And if I would create a Word report of this now, it would appear directly after the chapter functional requirements, and then you would have the subchapter pre-treatment. And you could add chapters descriptions for any level of chapters, including for the top level of basically the name of the type. That's also possible. It needs to be actively switched on, because also Word templates and things like that needs to be adjusted to know where to place the chapter description in the template. But please feel free to contact us if this is something that you would like to have. So per default, you will see the entry edit chapter description, but it will be disabled in the web. So it needs to be enabled per configuration. So I think this is going to get you a lot closer to actually putting a lot of the content inside of Aligned Elements, just generating big chunks of the texts for the documents. And then you can do the bits and pieces before and after in the Word documents as you used to. Now, another thing that we've added is something that we call a traced object attribute. Let me show you kind of what it looks like. I have a new type here that I call use scenario, and the use scenario is listing a number of user actions. So one action per row here. And these actions are now actually defined as their own objects. So I can see here I have task number 1, start in a sequence, and that's here in the table. And the second one is warm up of lens, and that's also in the table. And if I will go in and edit this, I'm going to make a bit more space here. Then I can add new tasks directly from the editing dialog. So shutdown sequence, I'm going to add that. The system mode is off. And whatever kind of attributes you have in here, you can also define in Aligned Elements then what should appear in this in these rows and what should be editable and things like that. And we have the possibility of making it kind of look nice and user friendly for the patient, for the operator, right? For the user in the tool. And what is going on behind the scene is that we created a new object. We can see that here. And this user scenario is automatically tracing to these objects. So it's part of the traceability. And it makes it possible to create kind of complex dependencies between one object type and another object type. And the neat thing is that we could, of course, have done this already with tracing, but we can also change the sequence of these steps. And this is something new. So if I would go in and would like to modify the sequence of the table, I can do so and say that it should start with the warm up and then it's going to do the start init phase, which doesn't really make sense, but you get the picture. But means that you can rearrange things. And we could, for example, reuse these tasks for a number of different use scenarios in this example, and we don't have to redefine them as copies or things like that. So that's a pretty neat feature, we believe, and we also allow you to have nested objects. So this task object could include a traced object to another subtask, for example, if you want to have that. And you can build hierarchies of reused documentation. And this, of course, is also reflected in the whole Word reporting. So if I would generate a Word report for my use scenario here, it would include the documentation from the tasks that are linked to it. And let's just generate a template-based Word report. And you have the possibility of doing nice reporting of that as well. And here we see that going on. And if I would like to, I could also include additional types from throughout the system that are not necessarily part of this traced object attribute that I do not show in the editing view, but are included in the traceability. So we have the possibility of then looking at traces from the task entry to, for example, hazardous situations down to harm or measure, and build that into the Word report as we're kind of used to with the traceability within Aligned Elements. And this makes it kind of a powerful feature for nesting information throughout the system and reusing information throughout the system. So we're a bit excited to see where that's going to be used in the system. Now, these are the two major features I had the pleasure of showing to you. They're are both web only, but they do allow you to still work in the Windows client, but they just don't display in the same neat way. But the data is not going to be corrupted, it's going to be there, and so forth. And for example, this traced object feature you would still see in the Trace2 portion of the detailed view in the Windows client, but you will not see this full-blown table when you open the object or open it for edit. So we've had a lot of input from people. They've been working with an object, and then they kind of, I don't know, go on a coffee break or do something else, go for a meeting, and they want to continue and see how. And then they come back and see that they've been logged out of the system, because we typically have an automatic session timeout after 30 minutes. And then you would come back and you would see that you've been automatically logged out of the system. And there are a number of reasons for this. You could have a long-running test and things like that, or you're working on something for a long time. So something we've been working really hard now in the background is to make sure that when this happens and the session times out, or for any other reasons, maybe your system admin is rebooting the web server, something like that, we will keep that data. And you will get a dialogue at this point saying that you will need to log in again, which is fine. And you will also get a dialogue showing that we will recover the data for you. And I think that's something that should help you not lose any work done, especially if you're working on, I don't know, a long-running test case or something like that, or putting a lot of detail into it, and you get interrupted by a colleague or something like that, and you're leaving it for a while. It's not going to go forgotten or anything like that. The system will try to do everything we can to recover that data for you. And this is also the case for complex objects, risk analysis, and things like that, which have a lot of dependencies throughout the traceability. It could be that the UI is not reflecting exactly your changes, but you will be also informed of that if that's the case. Saving the data will typically get it all into place, and reloading the data and afterwards should show the latest and greatest changes. So you have a possibility of reviewing what it looks like after you're done. I think this is something that should help you, especially if you're like, you know, if you get frustrated that you may lose data. We don't want that to happen. We know that it's hard work getting it in there. Another thing that is maybe good to understand, as long as you are typing, that timeout should never happen. So as long as you are actually doing modifications to these items, now if I don't touch it for half an hour, the timeout will come. If I start typing after 15 minutes, we're going to push that time out for another half an hour to make sure that you're actually not getting timeout in the system. So that's maybe also good to understand. So a bit of technical stuff happening in the background that should help you keep your data safe.
Okay, so that is wrapping up the new in Aligned Elements version 2.6. Again, we very much appreciate the feedback that we've gotten from you, and we are going to keep implementing the features that you suggest. If there are any of the things that you've seen today that you want to switch on per configuration, then reach out to us and we will assist you. Otherwise, thank you for being here, and keep those enhancement suggestions coming. Thank you very much.